What's up, poker people of YouTube? Welcome back to the Voting Vlogs. Hope you guys had a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. Let's get straight into this vlog and see you guys inside. Alright, so here at TCH Houston on Westheimer, buying into this new 1-3 no limit hold'em table for $1,000. That's a max buying you can do at a new table. In this first hand, it's our immediate first hand. We have 10-7 offsuit on the button straddle. Small blind, big blind, under the gun, cut off all limp to 6, and we check our option, of course. Flop is 9-8-3, 2 diamonds, and a club. So we flop open-ended. It checks to the cutoff who bets $40, which is obviously a lot more than the pot, but given that we're sitting about 300, 400 effective, I think we can call and get paid if we hit. When he bets 40, it seems like he's trying to bet a 2-pair hand or something like top, where he just doesn't see any more cards, given that his sizing so large. We end up making the call, and the rest of the players fold. The turn is the bink jack of spades, and he ends up checking before he even sees his card. So we go ahead and bet 70 into 110, trying to target those 2 pairs or sets that he might have. He ends up jamming, and we obviously snap call. We only lose to one hand, which is queen 10 offsuit. We end up going twice versus queen jack of diamonds, and here's a run out. So immediately next hand, it's the same player. I can't even get the camera set up to record, so I'm going to have to freeze frame just to do no spoilers. I do have the ending. We have pocket 10s in the cutoff. The same player we just stacked in the hijack raises to $25. We make the call, the small blind calls, and the big blind calls. 4 players to flop, which comes king, 10, 6, bink middle set, rainbow board. It checks to the hijack who bets $75. We obviously make the call. The small blind folds, and the big blind calls as well. Turns a 3 of spades, so bringing that backdoor spade draw. The big blind checks. Hijack jams all in for $200. Obviously, we're just going to rejam it for $350 effective. Trying to get the big blind involved as well, but unfortunately, the big blind folds. We end up going against ace-king offsuit and scooping this one as well. Off to a super hot start here in this session. We now look down at king-queen offsuit and low jack. We open for $15. The hijack, small blind, big blind all call. 4 players to flop, which comes 9, 4, 3, 2 clubs and a diamond. The blinds check to us, and we go for a C bet of $25. Don't have to go too big, given that we just have 2 overs. The hijack calls, and the rest of the players fold. Heads up to the turn now, which is a queen of diamonds, giving us top pair. We're going to go for value here. There's a lot of hands we can get value from. Ace-9, 10-9, clubs, and straight draws like 6-5. So we go for a value of $70, and the hijack calls once again. River's the queen of spades, so obviously giving us probably the best hand with trips here and a pretty good kicker. We go for a value of $150. Don't want this one to check through. Trying to target a hand like ace-9 or 10-9. Yes, there are missed draws like straight draws and flush draws that we would want to check to let them bluff, but we don't want to risk it checking back if they do have a value hand like 10-9 or ace-9 that they were calling with. We want to go for value against those hands and don't want to just gamble on the fact that they might have a draw, and it's not even guaranteed that they'll bluff at it with their draw on the river. Unfortunately, though, the hijack does fold after we make this bet of $150. Still off to a great start in this session, so no need to be disappointed that we couldn't get value on the river. We now look down at ace-king offsuit under the gun with the button straddle on. Big blind limps to 6, we now make it $35, and only the button and big blind call. 3 players to flop, which comes 10, 7, 6, 2 diamonds and club. We do have the ace of diamonds, so we could continue on this board, but this board just definitely favors the big blind and button more so than us. So when they check, we're just going to check as well. Turns the 3 of spades. The big blind checks. We're going to check once again, given that we don't turn any value. And the button now goes $110, which is a pot-sized bet. Big blind folds, and this is just an easy fold for us, even if we have these 2 overs here. What's up? Can't win every hand, but in this one, we now looked at an ace-jack offsuit and the low jack. The under the gun straddles on. The +1 opens for $20, and I haven't seen him play a hand yet, and he's the only other play sitting at about 1K effective, so I'm just going to play this one slow and just call here, not 3-betting, and the big blind calls as well. 3 players to flop now, which comes ace-6, 3, 2 spades, and a diamond. The big blind checks, and the +1 surprisingly checks as well, even though this board should favor his pre-flop raising range, where he should see bet a majority of the time. So we're just going to go for $25, trying to charge things like kings, queens, jacks that might raise pre-flop and then check this board. The big blind folds and the +1 calls. Turns the king of hearts now, and the +1 checks once again. I could obviously bet here charging spades, but I kind of want to take my hand to showdown and pot control just to see what he's playing and how he's playing it. So I like to check back. River's the 5 of spades, bringing that front door spade draw, and he checks once again. So it's really weird because spades are supposed to go for value on this river by leading. They don't want it risking checking back, and also a lot of its ace X's should have been betting flop and turn. So I like to just check with my showdown here, and the +1 shows ace jack as well with the jack of spades. So Definitely a weirdly played hand by him. Would expect him to bet flop and turn a majority of the time with his holding, given that he also had the jack of spades. But like I said in the beginning of the hand, we haven't seen him play a hand for the most part, and he raised pre-flop, so seems like a timid player, even though he is sitting pretty deep in this game. In our immediate next hand after that one, we look down at pocket queens on the +2. The button shot is on. The +1 limps. We go ahead and raise to $40, and only the button calls. Heads up to flop, which comes jack, 9, 9, 2 diamonds, and a heart. We're going to go ahead and c-bet here for $50, and the button jams for $80. Obviously, I call, and we go twice, and here's the run out. So still winning hands, and we now look down at ace king of diamonds in the hijack. The undergun opens for $20. We 3-bet to $50. Almost a min click. We're just trying to isolate here, and the undergun is the only player that calls. Heads up to flop, which comes jack, 9, 3, rainbow. The undergun checks, and I like to check this one back. We do have 2 overs, but not much else going for us here. So in position, we just check to see a free card. Turns to 7 of spades, and now undergun bets $50. I like to call because he could be barreling with queen 10 or king queen. And if he has something like queen jack, we're still live. This is more so an information call if he lets us get to showdown. And the river is a 5 of spades, to which he does check. And I obviously check back to see what he was calling with pre-flop and betting on the turn. And he does show queen jack offsuit. So makes sense for the most part, and definitely get some good information from this player here. I included this one for you guys as one of those hands that I just like to include, showing the action here at TCH and how people can play kind of suboptimally. We have jack 10 of spades under the gun. We open for $15. The low jack calls, hijack calls, and now the cutoff 3-bets is $60. The big blind calls, and I like to get out of the way given that there's already so much action, and our hand does play well post flop, but not multi-way in a 3-bet pot, so I do get out of the way. The low jack folds and the hijack calls. 3 players to flop, which comes 10, 3, deuce, 2 hearts and a club. We would have hit top pair, but let's just follow the action from this point on. Checks the hijack, who bets $60. The big blind calls, and the low jack folds. Now heads up to the turn, which is 4 of clubs. The big blind jams all in for $120 effective, and the hijack calls. The river's at 8 of hearts, and the big blind ends up having kings, just flatting the 3-bet, and the hijack mucks his hand. So just like that, you see that the big blind flatted $60 from a 3-bet rather than 4-betting his kings, allowing it to go multi-way. And that's just some of the action you're going to get here at TCH Houston, and how you can kind of minimize your losses against some players and also maximize your value when you actually have made hands. In this next hand, we have ace king offsuit in the small blind. The +1 limps. Low jack makes it $15. The hijack calls, the cutoff calls, and now we 3-bet with this hand to $90. Only the hijack calls. Flop is 10, 6, 5, 3 hearts. I like to just rip it for $250, given that we do have the king of hearts. There's a lot of fold equity in doing this jam here, and we still have some equity to a value made hand if we hit our flush. The hijack ends up calling and has 8, 7 hearts, so he flopped the flush with a redraw to the straight flush on both ends. We end up running it twice, and we get a heart on the top board, so if we did run it once, we would have scooped here, but I just am a default twice guy. If you ever see me at the tables, if you ever want to go once, I don't care. We can go once, but default is twice for me. So chop that one up and move on to the next one. King 10 of spades in the +1. Undergun limps, we pop it up to $20. The small blind, big blind, undergun all call. 4 players to flop, which comes ace, queen, 5, 2 hearts, and a spade. We have backdoor spades, as well as a gutter ball to Broadway. And it checks to us, and now we're going to see bet here on this board that should favor our range for $35. Only the small blind calls. Turns the queen of clubs, not really helping us. If he has an ace, he's going to continue calling, and if he has a queen, he's for sure going to continue to keep calling. So when the small blind checks, we just check this one back. River's 10 of hearts, and the small blind grabs a random amount of greens and throws it out, and this is obviously a snap fold with us. We had showdown value just checking this pair on the river back, but when he bets any type of amount, we basically have to fold. Pocket jacks here in the hijack. Under the gun straddle is on. We open for $30. The small blind calls. Under the gun now jams for $93. I rejam for 200 effective, and the small blind folds. We end up running it twice, and here's a run out. So scooping another one on both boards and just running really pure. Obviously super happy with the session so far. We now look down at king 10 of diamonds and low jack. Under the gun straddles on. Open for $30, and only the big blind calls. Heads up to flop, which comes jack, 8, 7, 2 spades, and a club. We do have a gutter ball to the jack high straight, but when the big blind checks to us, we're just going to take that equity and check back. Turn is now the 9 of clubs, giving us that straight. The big blind checks, and now we have to go for value. So we're going to bet $25, to which the big blind calls. Rivers, the deuce of diamonds, not changing anything on the board. So when the big blind checks, we go for a super small value bet here of $25, trying to get a crying call from some weak pair. But unfortunately, the big blind folds and doesn't even pay our $25 off here on the river. On the button now with Jack 10 of diamonds, the cutoff opens for $15. We go ahead and make the call, and the small blind calls as well. 3 players to flop, which comes queen, 7, 6, 2 diamonds, a spade. It checks to us, so the cutoff doesn't see bet here, and given that we do have equity to the flush draw, we're going to barrel here with our equity, and we bet $25, and both players fold. In the hijack this time with 8, 9 of diamonds, we open for $15. The cutoff calls, and the small blind calls as well. 3 players to flop, which comes king, jack, 10, 2 diamonds, and a heart. We have equity on this board, given that we have open-ended as well as the flush draw. We go ahead and bet $25. The cutoff goes all in for $154. And we're going to go ahead and make the call here, given that we do have a lot of equity here. Cutoff has king, 10 of hearts. We go once in this spot, and he ends up holding. Can't win them all, but in this one, we have ace-jack offsuit on the button. Undergun opens for $20. Hijack calls in position with the ace-jack hand. We're going to 3-bet here to $70, and only the undergun calls. Heads up to flop, which comes 10, 9, 8, 2 clubs and a heart. Undergun checks, and I think he has a lot of pocket pairs in his range, so I just don't want to barrel here. Even though we do have equity with our open-ended straight draw, I probably should be c-betting, but I like to check this one back. Turn is now the 9 of spades, and the undergun bets half pot, which is $80. I like to make the call here, given that we do have open-ended still. River's a 5 of spades, blanking us out, however, and the undergun checks, obviously. We just have showdown value with ace high, so we go ahead and check this one back. Undergun ends up having ace-king offsuit to take this one down as well. Looking down at pocket fives and the +2, undergun straddles on. We go ahead and limp the 6. The cutoff limps the 6. Button now makes it $30. Undergun calls. I go ahead and call to set mine, and the cutoff calls as well. So 4 players to flop now, which comes 10, 8, 4, 2 hearts and a spade. It ends up checking through. The turns to 3 of hearts. Undergun now bets $40. I elect to call here, thinking our fives are still good a majority of the time. Given that this is such a small sizing and it checked through on the flop, the rest of the players fold. River is the 7 of spades. Undergun now checks, and obviously we just have showdown value here with our pocket 5, so I check this one back. Undergun shows deuce 4 of diamonds, so they turn their second bottom pair into a bluff, and our pocket 5s are good to end off this session. Rainy weather leaving TCH Houston. In the game for 1,000, out of the game for 1970. That's a profit of $970. Yeah. Not much to say, just ran really good to start out the session, basically up $700 the first 2 hands, and then yeah, just played some poker to try to get a bit more than that after that. So up and down, but ended up after the first 2 hands plus another 270. So always a good time at TCH Houston. If you made it this far, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Happy New Year's, everyone, and thank you for following along as I restart this journey on the poker vlogs. And definitely read all your comments. So I'm always trying to improve. My game is not obviously the best, so I'm always looking for points and tips and all that stuff. So it definitely helps when you guys are commenting, interacting with the video, helping the algorithm, and also helping me get better as a poker player. Yeah, other than that, great year. Happy New Year to you, everyone and their families, and I'll see you guys on the next one. See you guys in 2025. Peace.